Hey, good morning, Hugh. Great to be on.
Before we talk about Zelensky and Ukraine and serious things, I have to ask you, what as a Browns fan, what do you think of Jimmy Haslam's bid to become the NFL's new Dan Snyder?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of saying we're going to get rid of Baker Mayfield, and, it's the perennial issue. You and I have talked about finding a franchise quarterback and sticking with him. Remember, he was injured a lot towards the end. I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense to me either. Let's hope it's all just smoke. Let's now get to the real smoke. There's smoke over Kiev, there's smoke over Kharkiv, but the Ukrainians say they've gone over to the offensive. Do you know anything about that, Senator?
Well, look, like a lot of senators, I've been very involved in trying to get the Ukrainians as much lethal aid as quickly as possible. By the way, as quickly as possible is one of the key issues. Hugh, as you know, our Pentagon can really drag its feet on some of these things. They get these drawdowns in tranches, and it just takes way too darn long. The Biden administration dragged its feet last fall in terms of getting them lethal military aid. I think we're going to hear a lot about that in the next hour from President Zelensky, but we need to be doing everything possible to enable him to win. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, although it's going to be tough. You've talked about it, the Russian way of war. They're going to come in and they're just going to try to flatten Kyiv. And, there's some courageous people right now inspiring the world. Zelensky is one of them, but the average Ukrainian citizen, to me, is a sight to behold, fighting for freedom. It's remarkable.
You are too young to remember this, Senator, but in 1973, when the Yom Kippur War was on, I was a junior in high school, Nixon became so frustrated with the Department of Defense, he finally called in Henry Kissinger and James Schlesinger and said, send everything that can fly to Israel, full of weapons. Do you think Biden will get there? Send everything that can fly, fill them up with not just javelins, but high-altitude missiles that can take down the high-altitude bombers that are just indiscriminately hitting civilians. Will Biden get there?
I mean, what's happening, if you're watching, on so many issues, this president is not leading from the front, he's leading from behind. And think about it. Just go through the list, Hugh. Nord Stream 2, the SWIFT sanctions, banning Russian oil, MFN on Russian trade, the MiGs. What's the common theme? This president has had to be pushed either by Congress, and by the way, it's almost always a bipartisan group in Congress,
yes,
or by our European allies. They have not led on the front foot on any of these issues, including the lethal weapons. What I'm hoping is that Zelensky really, really makes this a key part of his speech in the next hour, and then the administration will act. But the administration has been acting almost on every major issue after being pushed by us and, believe it or not, by our European allies. Look, when you're being pushed by the Germans on energy and military equipment, something's going wrong.
Senator, I want to play for you Tony Blinken on NPR last hour because it is Aspen Institute speak. It's Davos speak, and it makes me crazy what the Beltway talks itself into. Listen to this, talking to Stephen Inskeep.
Are the United States and its European allies capable of isolating China in the way that you've isolated Russia if China were to aid Russia beyond some certain point?
Well, China's already on the wrong side of history when it comes to Ukraine and the aggression being committed by Russia. The fact that it has not stood strongly against it, that it has not pronounced itself against this aggression, flies in the face of China's commitments as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council responsible for maintaining peace and security. It's totally inconsistent with what China says and repeats over and over again about the sanctity of the United Nations Charter and the basic principles, including the sovereignty of nations. And so we're looking to China to speak out, to speak up, and to be very clear. Second, of course, if China actually provides
Senator,
in one way
this
or another,
is
to Russia,
it's high school UN speak. It is the stuff of Washington seminar rooms. Wrong side of history. It's nuts.
So, Hugh, let me what I've been telling these guys and what I've been talking about is that we need to be much more clear. It's not great power competition, right? This is the new era of authoritarian aggression, and it is dictators, too, Putin and Xi Jinping, increasingly working together, driven by historical grievances and paranoid about their neighbors, whether it's Ukraine or Taiwan, because they're democracies and they're willing to use force. You may have seen Congressman Mike Gallagher and I have put forward legislation called the Stand with Taiwan Act. This is the kind of clarity that we need. One of the lessons from Ukraine already is that comprehensive economic sanctions, financial sanctions, have the best chance of deterring conflict if they are clearly articulated before the conflict begins.
Yes.
Our bill lays out really comprehensive sanctions to crush the Chinese Communist Party leadership, key sectors of the Chinese economy, and it says, here's the sanctions. If you militarily invade Taiwan, here's where you're going to get crushed with. That's
Senator,
we need. That's the kind of clarity we need, not what you just heard from Tony Blinken.
The alliance of tyrants that you refer to has got a third junior partner in Khamenei, and they've got Maduro and they've got Kim Jong Un. The trio of tyrants is Khamenei, Putin,
trio.
and
I
Xi.
like that.
And so those trio, they don't believe in this quote international rules-based order. They don't believe in the wrong side of history. They believe in themselves. At what point did the Biden administration wake up to this?
So again, this should be a clarifying moment. You're exactly right. The trio of tyrants, what they believe in and what they react to is one thing. It's power, whether that's military power, whether that's unleashing the incredible power of American energy, not unilaterally surrendering it, which is what Biden has done the whole first term. And it is the power of our alliances. You know, we are a country that has deep, substantial allies. We're an ally-rich nation, and that trio of tyrants, they're ally poor. These are American strengths, and it's what these guys respond to. It's not, UN speak. It's things like, all right, Soleimani, you're going to be in Iraq, reviewing the killing of more troops. We're going to kill you. That's the kind of thing that Iran understand, and these leaders understand.
Jim Sciutto of CNN reported minutes ago that a senior U.S. official has told him that Soviet-era SA-8, SA-10, SA-12, and SA-14 mobile air defense systems are being given to Ukraine, which is great, I think, except they've got to be at least 30 years old. I'm not sure what they're going to work or if they're going to hit. Don't we have stuff that can hit high-range airplanes? I mean, I remember Vietnam, the Soviets gave the Vietnamese everything to kill Americans with, and it wasn't direct conflict.
Well, the Stingers are effective, but they're effective only to a certain altitude. I would say these SAM systems, they're old, but they're pretty darn effective at higher altitudes. And the reason those are important, and this is where, Hugh, we have to be calling on other NATO countries, particularly former Warsaw Pact NATO countries, to also surge as much as they can to Ukraine, is because the Ukrainians have trained on those mostly. But those SAM systems that you're referring to that are higher altitude than the Stingers are actually still quite effective.
I'm glad to hear that. Let me ask you about the MiG-29s. Can't Poland roll those up to the border like we did to Canada in 1940 and allow the Ukrainians to walk across and fly them away? I mean, how did we veto that?
Yes, you're exactly right. And, the point here, I was on the call with Zelensky about 10 days ago. He was talking about a no-fly zone. My view is give them all the weapons they have to create their own no-fly zone. And that's what he asked us for. And the MiGs are a part of that mix of weapon systems that can control the sky. But as you see, right now, it's what I mentioned earlier. These guys the Biden administration is deterring itself. The point is to deter Putin. And right now, on this issue as well, they're dragging their feet.
You're
and
so
it
right.
sends exactly the wrong message to the guy we're supposed to be deterring.
The Biden administration is deterring itself. Well put, Senator Sullivan. Breaking news, Marco Rubio has put out a deep fake that Russia has Zelensky saying he's quitting. They're not quitting.